Good morning, and thank you very much for inviting me to these conferences. I'm Sara García Isidoro. I'm coming from Salus Infirmorum Nursing and Physical Therapy faculty from the Pontificia University of Salamanca, and I would like to share with you a little study that is titled Covid-19 Pandemic, Quality of Life and Impact on Public Health in Confinement in Spain. As you all know, on December 2019, there was an outbreak of respiratory infection caused by a new virus that we commonly call Covid-19, which quickly spread from the Asian continent to the rest of the world. Here in Spain, we have this infection with rising numbers from mid-February to mid-March. And at that point, the Spanish government must take action, and they launched a royal decree on March 14 that declared the state of alarm for the management of this health crisis caused by COVID-19. This new virus caused a major collapse of the public health services. So with this state of alarm, there were associated mandatory home-based confinement. This home-based confinement had an initial duration of 15 days, but it was extended several times, and at the end it ended on May 4, 2020. At this state of alarm, we had a series of measures imposed by the government. Long story short, we had forbidden every kind of meeting, gathering of any kind, cultural, religious, any kind of party, and also had limited movement and circulation on public roads. You only could go outside your house if you went to buy food, you went to buy medicine, you went to a doctor appointment, or maybe to see the doctor, or you are going out to help elderly people. The problem was that there was a major collapse of the public health system. Every previous appointment to the doctor was cancelled unless you had maybe maybe you were pregnant or had any kind of serious disease like maybe cancer. So there were a lot of people that had a previous health condition with pain or associated symptoms that could not go to the doctor or even go out of the house. And also due to these kind of measures, a lot of small businesses or even big businesses went to the bankruptcy or even being closed. So we faced this situation with differences on opportunities. Due to this, and seeing that there are numerous articles that endorse the idea that home quality, seen as the quantity of people that you live with normally, employment, gender status, physical exercise, as well as body mass index or diagnosis of COVID-19, could be an increased risk of suffering or not pain and changes in quality of life. We thought about measuring these things on the confined population to see how these home-based confinement were affecting to the public health. So we tried to determine the impact of the confinement to the Spanish population due to COVID-19 pandemic in pain, quality of life, and perceived health, and to identify the relationship between these results and gender diagnosis of COVID-19, company during home confinement, job situation, exercise, and body mass index. How did we do it? First, we designed an observational study type that took place all over Spain. We designed an online survey that was distributed by telematic means, most of all social media. We collect data about age, gender, height, weight, company during home confinement, current work situation, physical exercise practice, and diagnosis of COVID-19. Also, we made questions about pain and quality of life. About pain, we wanted to know if the subject were suffering pain related or not to confinement, about the pain behavior and the intensity of pain using a numerical pain rating scale. Also, we wanted to know how was the impact on different spheres of daily life using the SF36 version 2 questionnaire. We established sample size calculation, and we decided that we need 385 participants necessarily. We launched the questionnaire on April 18 of 2020, but the de-escalation date, that was the date on that the state of alarm were over, was announced from one day to another. So we had a limit, the May 3rd of 2020, to gathering all this data, because the escalation date was on May 4th, 2020. We included a subject of all genders, and we decided to include people from 15 years old to 99 years old, because here in Spain, in order to gain access to a public university, you have to start this preparing this competitive exam more or less at 15, 16 years old. As these exams were cancelled, and there was a lot of uncertainty about how the start of the normal classes were going, we wanted to know if these kind of students had any kind of impact due to confinement. Also, we wanted only people that were living in Spain from March 14 to May 4th, because this is the whole temporal line of confinement. We excluded incomplete questionnaire with more than 80% blank answers in the second section, the one referring to pain and quality of life, and questionnaires with inconsistent demographics in the first half of the questionnaire. We asked the Committee for Research Ethics with Drugs of the Health Area of Burgos and Soria to assess this study, and they emitted a waiver for this study due to its characteristics. So we, at the end, obtained 225 questionnaires until May 4th. And we have here a few results that I am going to explain quickly. I think that here we can start with the interesting part. As you can see, the vast majority of our sample were formed by females, 70.22%, and also the majority of them were on normal weight, 56.44%. Regarding home type, we decided to use this classification because we wanted to know if the people were living alone, living with another person that could be their couple, or maybe a friend, or maybe a relative, or living with more than two people, maybe family or roommates. But also we wanted to know how many of them were living alone with company during the day. As the state of alarm allowed to go to visit people in need, we wanted to know if this brief company during the day could make an impact on pain or quality of life. Also, we asked about job type, and here we made a classification to cover more or less all the possibilities during this confinement. We asked if they were unemployed, we were performing domestic work, were studying, and we made a difference between student and competitive student to be candidate to a public job, or maybe candidate to public studies. And these kind of students are the ones that have pressure and stress. Also health professionals, minimal serving workers, working on food sector, but not relative to restaurants or bars. We were meaning working on, for example, a food shop, state security forces, being on teleworking, being on ERTE. That is a situation that during the state of alarm, due to the law, many businesses had to close down. So the government give an economical aid. So these are the people that are enjoying this economical aid, being retired on medical sick leave, the usual work practice, the one that were allowed, for example, factory workers of agricultural workers, and others that in our cases were autonomous workers, owners of small businesses. As you can see, the majority of them were living with more than 2 people and also were teleworking. We asked how many exercises they were doing during the confinement. We had these possibilities due to that during home confinement, the public television were constantly reminded that you have to exercise even more than once a day. So we asked if they were doing exercise more than once a day, at least once a day, more than 3 times per week, 2 or 3 times per week, 1 or 2 times per week, twice a month. Maybe they did not practice exercise or other. In this case, we have 2 people that made stretching and also walks. How? Well, you could not go outside your home, but there are many people that made walks going up and down There were a lot of people that performed their walks in the same building, going up and down by the stairs. In this case, the majority of the sample practiced exercise at least once a day during the confinement. And about the COVID-19 diagnosis, the vast majority did not have a positive test of COVID-19. But what I think is pretty curious is that the same amount of people that had a positive test for COVID-19 were the same amount of people that thought that they maybe have COVID-19 because they had same symptoms but did not have a positive test. When we asked if they had pain before confinement, the vast majority said no, at 70.22%. But when we asked if they had pain during confinement, although the majority still did not have pain, as you can see here, the people that were suffering pain during confinement were the double of the ones that were suffering pain before confinement. Asked about the quality of this pain, the majority of them said that they were suffering constant pain during confinement. And also, they have a mean of intensity of pain of 5.26 points. The most common answers were a pain of 6, a pain of 7, or a pain of 8. They were pretty high. And these are not the minimum and the maximum of the scale. These are the minimum and the maximum of the answer. So meanwhile, some people had a pain of 0 at that moment, at the moment of the survey, maybe because they were suffering brief pain. There were people that were suffering a pain of 10 at that moment. It's pretty high pain. So we wanted to know if there were a relationship between suffering pain before confinement and pain during confinement. And the answer is yes. In fact, people that suffered pain before confinement had a risk 35.26 times higher of suffering pain during confinement than people that did not suffer pain before confinement. Also, suffering pain had a relationship with gender. As you can see, there is a relationship in both situations, and being a male is a protective factor in both occasions. So being a female is directly related to suffer pain before confinement and during confinement. This is nothing new, as some authors have state that there is a direct relationship between gender and pain. When wanted to know if there is a relationship between home type and suffering pain, our results did not show any kind of relationship, but we found relationship between how much exercise did they perform and pain before suffering pain before confinement. As you can see, not doing any kind of exercise elevate the risk of suffering pain before confinement 1.58 times compared with people that exercise more than once a day. But what is curious is that people that perform exercise once or twice per week had a risk 1.67 times higher than people that exercise more than once a day of suffering pain before confinement. And this can be related to the fact that a lot of people use exercise to treat or control their pain. So maybe just because they were suffering pain before confinement, they were exercising once or twice per week. Also, it's pretty common the relationship between not doing exercise and having pain. So when we didn't find any relationship between exercising and suffering pain during confinement, maybe we have to think that exercise is not enough or to be a protective factor for pain during this kind of situation. Also, I found relationship between job type and suffering pain before confinement, with people that perform domestic work having a risk 3.83 times higher of suffering pain than people that are unemployed. There are several articles that makes a relationship between precarious work and pain. But what is curious is that during confinement, we thought that we could find relationship between being a health professional or a minimal self-work worker and suffering pain, but in reality, we did not find any kind of relationship. Also, we have a relationship between body mass index and suffering pain before confinement and during confinement. As you can see here, people with obesity had a risk 7 times higher than people that are underweight of suffering pain during confinement. And also, we found this relationship between suffering pain during confinement and having a positive test of COVID-19, which is not strange if we think that one of the main symptoms of COVID-19 is suffering body pain. But what I think that is curious is that the same persons that thought that they maybe have COVID-19 did not have pain during confinement. So maybe they were searching for another symptoms. Regarding quality of life, we thought that as it was a physical confinement, the physical functioning or the physical role functioning were more affected, but in fact, the sphere more affected by the confinement were the vitality sphere, as people feel exhausted on their day due to confinement. And also, the emotional role functioning were affected, as people reported that their emotional state prevented them to make normally their activity, their daily life activities. When asked about the declared general health, the majority of them stated that their health were about the same as 1 year ago. But as you can see, this table is a little bit pushed to the right part, as the second most voted possibility was to feel somewhat worse now than 1 year ago. So there is a big part of the population that is feeling worse. We wanted to know if there was a relationship between this declared general health and the other variables. And we found a positive relationship between suffering pain before confinement and pain during confinement, with people that did suffer this kind of pain having the results more going to the right part of the table, feeling worse now than 1 year ago. But we did not find any kind of relationship between this declared general health and gender, home type, and the exercise performance. Nevertheless, we found a relationship between this declared general health and job type. As you can see, people teleworking or inert situation were the ones that, as second option, had more votes to feeling somewhat worse now than 1 year ago. And also, it's curious that the ones that were feeling better now than 1 year ago were the domestic work performers. About the body mass index, we also found a positive relationship with people of normal weight, overweight, and obesity feeling a little bit worse now than 1 year ago. And we did not find any kind of relationship between suffering COVID-19, yes or no, and the declared general health. That for me is curious. So we have to keep in mind, I think that to make it short, we have to keep in mind that nowadays, not only 1 month, like I say on the presentation, in Spain, as well as all over the world nowadays, most subjects of working age are still unable to work and carry out their usual exercise routine. Nowadays, there are still plenty of restrictions. This can lead to potential health and well-being issues that should be further investigated. Also, it's clear that these measures of confinement are super effective containing the spread of the virus, but also we have to look forward of what are the side effects of this confinement on people's life and in people's health. Also taking into account that there is a huge part of the population that had the virus but did not have symptoms, so they are not officially positive, and also that there is a proportion of people with the virus that did not have any test, so they are also invisible. We have to take into account how this is going to affect our health. Also, I think that on further investigation, we should follow the health professionals, because we have seen that 3 years after the SARS crisis, they develop alcohol abuse and other symptoms of dependence due to this health crisis. Maybe we have to wait a little bit to see how this situation is affecting to our health professionals. And also, it's important to remind that both infected and non-infected subjects with disease have a psychological stress response to COVID-19, which could have long-term health consequences. What I am trying to say is that we have to keep investigating, not only on the COVID-19 positive people, but also on every part of the population. As you can see here, there has been different measures that has been launched in order to aid to elders, to people with mental issues, but there were none of them were launched to health people. So we have to also take care to people that were healthy and now are in risk. Unfortunately, the obtained data is limited, and there are few studies about the impact of confinement on healthy and sick population. So it's pretty important not only to further studies in this field, so as the reorganization of the healthcare to help patients with COVID-19, but also those with emotional disorders due to the epidemic. So for finishing, the conclusion of our study are that the pandemic generated by the presence of COVID-19 has been associated with 2 health states that must be managed with priority, those due to infection per se and those derived from confinement, both in apparent healthy and infected people. The presence of pain in subjects undergoing confinement is persistent with varying intensity and frequency based on age, gender, physical activity, and work status. In any of these conditions, the quality of life of the subjects in confinement has been affected, which to this day creates a severe public health problem. And with this, I finish my presentation. Sorry very much for my accent. And if any of you have any kind of question and inquiry, I will answer it with pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sara. That's a wonderful presentation. Yeah, we'll see if anyone have any questions or comments. You can please go ahead and ask Professor Sara.
Hello, my name is Mila Mason. I am from the United States, and I do have a question for you. What is your knowledge of or use of what's known as the total pain concept? I'm not sure if you all are familiar with that, but came out of Dame Cicely Saunders and her work with hospice. Is that something that you all utilize and are familiar with?
To be honest, the main investigator of this study, that is Elvira Iglesias Lopez, cannot be with us here today. Yes, she is familiar with this concept, and she's a specialist on pain. For me, I am a physical therapist, and I am more concerned on precisely palliative care and the concept of pain. Well, you know, the neuromatrix of pain. So
Gotcha.
we wanted to know if what we were focusing on this investigation was pretty general. The problem is that we were launching a telematic survey, and we did not use, for example, hospital records, because the health services were totally collapsed. So we focused only on people that were suffering pain, but not the kind of pain. I think that this is a limitation. We should maybe ask if how many times they were suffering pain, and the origin of this pain. The problem was that having this kind of home confinement, and not only were a problem for the subject, but also for us. So we designed this as a more or less as a pilot study in order to know the impact in a very general way. Yes. Also, our primary hypothesis were that the physical function were going to be pretty much affected, but in fact, no, it was the mental well-being. So yes, that was a surprise for us. I know that our study could be much better, but in fact, we did what we could.
No, I think it's a good start. I think that it actually points to the total pain concept, where the psychological and the social and the emotional side can manifest itself in a physical way. So I think it's a good start, actually.
Thank you very much. But I think that we could do better on future. Now, as you said, we have an arrow pointing where to continue, and I don't think we are going to stop here. I think that it needs further investigation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the excellent lecture. I would echo Mila Mason with next time I would also add spiritual pain, because I think much of the pain, you know, when you were showing the numbers, is probably emotional, social, spiritual, and not physical pain.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now that we have the results, there are a lot of question poppings. For example, I think that it's pretty important to ask, did you have a diagnosis of something? Or because there are so many people that were suffering pain before confinement, and then a lot of people more suffering pain before confinement, they did have any kind of diagnosis of a structural problem, or it's just emotional. The problem is that we were not prepared to make that questions, because we didn't expect that answers. And in fact, the results of this study were a surprise for us. I don't know maybe where you live, but here in Spain, maybe we will have another confinement, so maybe we will have a new opportunity to develop more this study.